So my brother was 41 years old, living in London with his wife and his 3-year-old daughter, and they were all a little bit unwell on the Monday with a stomach bug, really, I suppose. Manuela and Sophie got better overnight, Mark not so well. On the Thursday, Manuela rang me and said Mark had gone into hospital. I knew immediately that there was something that wasn't quite right because he was a bit disorientated, confused, he was hot, sweaty. I didn't know what was wrong, but because he was my brother, I knew something wasn't quite right. Basically what happened then was he saw a number of doctors that came to see him, asked him questions about his abdomen. They were treating him for what they thought he had. He had a very swollen stomach, he was in some pain, and they thought he had maybe a gallstone or gallbladder problem. So my brother had walked in at 12, he'd been through triage, he'd been for an ultrasound, been admitted to the ward. It was 5:15 and we were told he was having some kind of fit or some kind of seizure of some kind, they weren't sure. So we went into the side room and we just waited for a while. And about an hour or so later, a doctor came in from the surgical team and said, from a surgical perspective, there's nothing we can do for your brother. He has no bursts, no perforations, nothing we can do surgically. There's nothing obvious, but he's a very gravely ill man. Obviously my reaction was, well, what do you mean? Because he's come in here with a stomach problem, and you're saying he's gravely ill. I just rang my parents in Cardiff and said, there's nothing to worry about. Should I be worried? And they said, well, we've handed him over to the intensive care unit. He's walked in at 12 with a stomach issue. He's in, we find out later, he's in full cardiac arrest by 5:15, and he's ventilated in ITU with a 50-50 chance at this point of survival by 7 p.m. I think at this point they realised that he was going into septic shock, and that's what caused the cardiac arrest. Prior to that, I don't think they were aware of the infection. Once it got more serious, they realised actually he had an aggressive infection, is how they described it. An aggressive infection, his body was reacting badly to it, adversely, which is what you do what happens when you have sepsis. And he was really, really ill because his body was starting to shut down. So yes, we were aware of an infection, and that was what was causing the problems. We didn't know that was sepsis. I didn't know at that point that sepsis was the body's adverse reaction to an infection. And the first time I actually saw sepsis at all was when I picked up his death certificate 2 or 3 days later, because unfortunately he died, was pronounced dead on the Saturday, so he went in on the Thursday at 12, was in full cardiac by 5:15. One of the problems here was that nobody knew that. He didn't present, he saw the doctors, he wasn't treated early enough. It's nobody's fault, this isn't a blame thing. But the problem was that none of us knew what sepsis was until we saw the death certificate. But the primary cause of death, what killed my brother, was sepsis. And then when I realised it was an infection, or a body's reaction to an infection, which is treated by fluids and antibiotics, which is very, very common, really. My reaction was, I can't believe that my brother's died of something, but that's actually pretty common and actually very, very treatable. So they started treating Mark for sepsis probably 6 hours after he arrived. That's 6 hours too late. So what we tried to do as a trust, as a charity, is make sure everybody knows enough to think about sepsis, that clock starts ticking and it actually starts from minute 0. The main things, I think, when I reflect back on this, the differences that could have been made, time is critical for this. My brother would have presented late because he didn't know that he was that ill. He didn't realise he had sepsis. The people that he saw, the primary care people that he saw, they didn't realise he had sepsis either. So he was treated for what they thought he had, gastric flu. None of them were thinking about sepsis. And the reason everything slows down is because people don't think about it. So what would have changed it was if I already knew about it, if he already knew about it, if the first people he saw knew about it. And that's the thing, it's an education, it's about awareness, that the people actually turn up at their GP or turn up at A&E and think, actually, I have a really bad stomach infection, but could it be sepsis? And if they actually ask that very, very simple question, I mean, it really is a very, very simple question, could this be sepsis? It's a question that could definitely, potentially could save my brother's life. It could definitely save lots of other people's lives, and that's what that's the aim here, is to save lives and protect the families from going through what our family went through, because it is a car crash. It's sudden, it's shocking, and the impact from it is just like a road accident. It's so quick. Think about sepsis, ask the question, could this be sepsis? Because it definitely could save your life, and that's very, very crucial.